There's a graveyard in your phone, names you once trusted, people who knew your secrets, friends who swore they'd always be there. Now, silence. You tell yourself it's distance, time, life pulling people apart, but you're lying to yourself. Carl Jung knew the real reason. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Your friendships didn't fade, they were poisoned by the one emotion nobody admits exists between friends: envy. Not dramatic betrayal, not explosive fights. Shadow envy, the kind that operates in darkness beneath consciousness, destroying relationships while you smile and pretend everything's fine. Your friend gets promoted, you congratulate them, but something shifts inside, a whisper you won't acknowledge. Why them and not me? That whisper is the beginning of the end. It's easier to blame your friend for changing than admit their success made you feel inadequate. Easier to let the friendship die than face what's living in your shadow. But avoidance has a cost. You're paying it right now. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Every friendship begins with a lie that you're equals forever. Friendship doesn't end with betrayal. It begins with equality. And that's the first illusion. Two guys, same struggles, same dreams, same level. You're in it together, against the world. Success feels shared because you're running the same race. When one wins, you both win. Equality feels eternal, right until the first finish line splits you apart. That's the fantasy. Here's the reality. Time destroys equality, always without mercy. One of you gets promoted, the other stays stagnant. One buys a house, the other struggles with rent. One finds love, the other faces another rejection. And in that moment, something dark awakens in the friend left behind. Envy. Jung warned us. Envy is shadow material, the primitive emotion you can't admit without destroying your self-image. You think you're a good person, a supportive friend. Admitting envy would shatter that illusion. So instead, you push it down. You deny it. You bury it deep in your unconscious mind. But here's what Jung understood that you don't. Buried doesn't mean dead. That envy is still there, still operating, still controlling your behavior from the darkness. You're possessed by your own darkness and you don't even know it. Missing important events, offering backhanded compliments, finding reasons to distance yourself. Jung said it plainly. A man who is possessed by his shadow is always standing in his own light and falling into his own traps. For men who've climbed the ladder, fathers balancing families, professionals who work their asses off, this pain cuts deep. You achieve something. You expect celebration. Instead, you get silence. Your texts die in read receipts. Your calls go to voicemail. Equality feels eternal, right until the first finish line splits you apart. And you torture yourself trying to figure out what you did wrong. Here's the answer. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Your success became a mirror. And when your friend looked into it, they saw their own failure reflected back. They couldn't handle it, so they smashed the mirror. But broken glass doesn't disappear. It cuts in silence. And that silence is where the competition begins. The slowest betrayals are the hardest to see. You don't lose a friend in one fight. You lose them one text at a time. At first, your friend still tries to be happy for you. They force smiles. They say the right words. But something's changed beneath the surface. You can feel it even if you can't name it. And it is when support turns into silent competition. It doesn't start with hatred. It starts with applause that sounds just a little too polite. The question used to be, how can I help you succeed? Now it's, why him and not me? That question is acid. It eats through everything. Envy isn't just wanting what someone else has. That's too simple. Envy is a fundamental assault on your self-worth. Every win they have highlights your losses. Every step forward they take measures of how far behind you've fallen. And Jung knew, envy emerges when you lack another's superior quality and you either want it or wish they didn't have it. Friendship becomes a scoreboard. Every conversation is tallying points. They share good news, you hear it as bragging. They talk about their life, you're mentally calculating who's winning. Trust dies first, slowly, quietly. You stop being vulnerable because vulnerability would mean admitting where you're struggling while they're succeeding. They sense your distance but can't understand it because you're still showing up, still smiling, still saying what friends are supposed to say. But the real connection? Gone. Here's the cruel irony. Envy is most intense among friends precisely because of proximity. Stranger success doesn't wound you. You're not comparing yourself to strangers. But your friend, the guy you started with, the one who was supposed to be your equal, his success becomes a continuous reminder that you're not good enough. The conversation is poisoned, not by what's said, but by what's felt underneath. Every interaction carries the weight of unspoken competition. The comparison never stops. It's relentless. It's exhausting. It's the cancer growing in your friendship that nobody can see until the patient's already dead. And the patient is dying, right now, while you're pretending everything's fine. Envy doesn't stay silent forever. Sooner or later, it finds a voice, and the betrayal doesn't arrive with a knife. It arrives with silence. Betrayal never kicks down the door. It slips in through silence. A comment not made, a milestone ignored, a celebration declined. These aren't accidents. These are shadow impulses acting out below consciousness. Your envious friend starts gossiping. Not maliciously, they tell themselves it's concern. They're just worried about whether you're handling success well, whether you've changed, whether you're becoming someone unrecognizable. They tell mutual friends you're distant now. That success went to your head, that you think you're better than everyone. This gossip serves two shadow functions. It tears you down in others' eyes, and it positions them as the stable one while you're the problem. Jung warned about this. When people try too hard to maintain perfect self-images, the shadow descends into hell and becomes the devil. And you just became the scapegoat. Your best friend, the guy you trusted with everything, is now actively working against you. When you face setbacks, there's satisfaction in their voice. When you share worries, they magnify them. When conflicts arise, they side with others, even when they know you're right. These aren't conscious acts. That's what makes them so dangerous. The shadow operates below awareness. Your friend genuinely believes they're innocent. If confronted, they deny everything, convinced they've been the loyal one all along, and you're the one who changed. The deepest cut comes from realization itself. You trusted this person. You were vulnerable with them. You shared your fears, your dreams, your weaknesses. And some part of them, the shadow part they won't acknowledge, wanted your downfall. Not because they hate you, because your success made them feel like failures. This is betrayal in its purest form. The person you thought you knew contained depths of resentment you never imagined. And the worst part? They have no idea they're doing it. But betrayal never stays hidden. It mutates. And when the pressure mounts, it shows itself in ways you can't ignore. Milestones aren't celebrations. They're stress tests, marriage, children, success. These aren't milestones. They're landmines. They expose every crack in the foundation. These milestones don't just change your life. They reveal what was always lurking in your friendships. You get married. Your envious friend makes jokes about ball and chain, and losing your freedom. You have children. They dismiss your responsibilities as boring suburban conformity. You take a career leap. They question your decision, highlighting risks, predicting failure. This isn't a concern. This is shadow envy dressed up as friendship. Jung understood. The kernel of all jealousy is lack of love. Your friends' reactions to your growth mirror their own stifled potential. Your courage reflects their cowardice. Your willingness to take on responsibility highlights their avoidance. For fathers, this becomes brutally clear. Fatherhood demands maturity, sacrifice, shifted priorities. Friends without kids can't or won't understand that you can't spontaneously disappear for weekend trips anymore. That your life orbits a small human who depends entirely on you. What you experience as meaning and purpose, they frame as you changing or not being fun anymore. The envy isn't about wanting kids themselves. It's about resenting the depth and purpose you found that they lack. Your life acquired meaning while theirs feels increasingly hollow. Rather than facing their emptiness, they mock your fulfillment. These life changes force a reckoning. Either the friend integrates their shadow, admits their envy, works through it, accepts that the friendship is changing, or the friendship dies. Most choose death because integration requires painful self-examination that few can handle. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Here's the brutal truth. Most men lose friends not because they changed, but because they grew. And growth is unforgivable to people committed to staying the same. Your marriage wasn't the problem. Your children weren't the problem. Your career success wasn't the problem. Their stagnation was the problem. And rather than addressing it, they made you the villain. But what happens when they don't admit the envy and keep pretending to celebrate you? Not every friendship ends with a knife in your back. Some just choke the life out of you, slowly, steadily, until you can't breathe anymore. Every interaction becomes work, walking through minefields of unspoken resentment, watching every word, censoring your joy. You achieve something good. Your first instinct isn't to share it, it's to hide it. Because you know sharing triggers their envy, so you downplay your success, prefix accomplishments with apologies. I know I'm lucky. It's not that big a deal. I probably don't deserve it. These aren't humility. These are protective strategies to avoid the shadow eruption you sense coming. The relationship becomes one-sided. You're always listening, always supporting, always encouraging. But when you need support, nothing. Silence, subject changes, minimization, or worse, they weaponize your vulnerability later. Jung described the shadow as, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Highly emotional, driven by primal instinct, often violent, concealed from the world by the conscious mind. When shadow dominates, relationships get infected. They attack what they secretly desire, diminish what they wish they possessed, criticize what they envy. Every conversation leaves you drained, confused, smaller somehow. There's constant negativity, criticism disguised as concern, competition masquerading as conversation. They keep score of everything. Who paid last? Who helped more? Who got more attention? The friendship becomes a transaction instead of a connection. Eventually, you face an impossible choice. Keep an envious friend or choose peace. This feels like betrayal because they didn't do anything overtly wrong. No dramatic fight, no clear transgression you can point to. Just this steady, exhausting drain on your energy. This sense that maintaining the friendship requires making yourself smaller, dimmer, less successful to keep them comfortable. But here's what Jung would tell you. The best political, social, and spiritual work we can do is to withdraw the projection of our shadow onto others. Friendship has become a weight around your neck, and you're drowning. And once the contract is broken, your growth itself becomes a crime. And it does not come as an insult. It comes disguised as congratulations, the smile that doesn't touch the eyes. Congratulations laced with venom. Congrats on the promotion. It must be nice to have connections. New house? Wow. Hope you can afford it. Engaged? That's great. Let's see how long that lasts. Hear the poison? It's surgical, precise. These statements acknowledge your achievement while destroying it. Offer surface support while planting doubt. Your friend maintains their self-image as supportive while satisfying their shadow needs to diminish you. Jung taught that projection is the unconscious process of attributing your own unacknowledged qualities onto others. Envy does not allow humanity to sleep. When your friend can't celebrate your success genuinely, they're projecting their insecurities onto you. Watch what happens after you share big news. A true friend wants details. How did it happen? How do you feel? What does this mean for your future? They lean in, they engage, they celebrate without reservation. The envious friend, they rush through acknowledgement and pivot immediately. To themselves, to something else, anything else. Your joy makes them uncomfortable because it creates comparison. So they minimize your moment to minimize their discomfort. Trust erodes with each masked celebration. You stop sharing good news because you know it won't be received well. Important milestones pass unmentioned because mentioning them feels like walking into an ambush. The friendship becomes management, strategy, calculation, not a connection. Here's the cruelty. Thus, we demand that the world grant us recognition for qualities which we regard as personal possessions. He feels limited, and the result is envy and jealousy. You achieve something meaningful and realize you have nobody to tell who will be genuinely happy for you. No reservations, no qualifications, just pure, uncomplicated joy for your victory. Your envious friend's inability to celebrate reveals the friendship was conditional all along. They were your friend as long as you remained at their level or below. The moment you rose above, the contract was broken. And once the contract is broken, your growth itself becomes a crime. When you grow, you don't just leave habits behind, you leave people behind. When you evolve new skills, healthier habits, ambitious goals, you hold up a mirror to everyone around you. Some see inspiration, others see accusations. Your friends stuck in patterns, they won't examine experiences of your growth as implicit criticism. You quit drinking, they feel judged for still drinking. You start exercising, they feel condemned for staying sedentary. You pursue education, they feel attacked for their stagnation. You're not saying anything about them, but your actions scream, change is possible, and they hate you for it. Jung argued that the shadow mirrors unlived potential. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Qualities and talents we repress not because they were bad, but because others condemn them out of envy, fear, or ignorance. Your friend's resentment isn't about you. It's about their own unlived potential, the person they could have become but didn't, the courage they failed to muster, the risks they refused to take. Every conversation about your progress reminds them of their lack of direction. Facing this truth is painful, so they rationalize their resentment. You've changed. You think you're better than us now? You're not the person I knew. These accusations are projection in its purest form. You haven't claimed superiority, you've simply become different. But difference creates distance, and distance threatens the friendship's foundation. You were friends not because of who you could become together. You were friends because of who you agreed to remain. For men especially, growth triggers particular resentment, choosing therapy, reading about emotions, addressing trauma, building deeper connections. These get mocked as weakness or pretentiousness by friends who haven't done the work. Your evolution threatens their defensive structures, so they attack to protect themselves. The tragedy is that friendship could have evolved too. If both are committed to growth, the friendship could deepen, mature, and become more meaningful. But growth requires both parties to integrate shadows, and few are willing. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. It's easier to resent the person who grew than to ask why you stayed the same. You either pull each other up, or one pulls the other down, or you separate. There's no equilibrium between evolution and stagnation. One always wins. But when resentment can't be admitted, it has to be blamed, and someone always becomes the scapegoat. In the end, the shadow doesn't just poison your friend, it rewrites their memory of you. The envious friend can't acknowledge their feelings, so they attribute them to you. They're not the problem, you are. You changed. You became arrogant. You abandoned the friendship. You think you're better than everyone now. Success went to your head. You're not the person I used to know. Jung taught that people who use projection to shield themselves from their shadow never question whether their self-image is too perfect. They become forever dependent on scapegoats to blame for everything wrong in their lives. By making you the problem, they preserve their self-image. They're the stable one, the loyal friend, the unchanged constant. Any distance must be your fault because they remained exactly who they always were. This scapegoating serves multiple shadow functions. It transforms envy into righteous indignation about your supposed arrogance. It positions them as victims rather than perpetrators. It gives them permission to gossip, distance, even undermine you all while maintaining moral superiority. The accusations are particularly vicious because they contain fragments of truth twisted into weapons. Did you change? Yes, growth is the change. Did you gain confidence? Yes, success builds confidence. Do you have less time for certain activities? Yes, new responsibilities require different priorities. But the envious friend weaponizes these natural evolutions, reframing growth as arrogance, confidence as superiority, change priorities as abandonment. For men who improve themselves, professionally, physically, emotionally, this projection cuts deep. You worked hard, made sacrifices, pushed through resistance to become better, and instead of respect, you get accused of thinking you're better. Jung warned that through projection, the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. For no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. No matter what you do, you can't reach them because they're not seeing you. They're seeing their own disowned emotions wearing your face. The relationship becomes impossible. You're defending against accusations that have nothing to do with reality. You didn't become arrogant. They felt inferior. You didn't abandon them. They withdrew. You didn't change for the worse. You evolved in ways that triggered their shadow, but there's no argument to be made. They're not conscious of the projection. From their perspective, they're speaking the truth, calling out your failings, holding you accountable. So you become the villain in their story. The mask has fallen, the shadow has won, and you're about to lose a friend. But friendships rarely explode. They fade. And when they fade, they leave nothing but silence. No explosive argument, no final confrontation, no decisive rupture, just silence. Slow, suffocating, final. Text messages take longer to answer. Then they stop being answered at all. Plans get canceled last minute. New plans meet vague promises. Yeah, we should do that sometime. That never materialize. Birthdays pass unacknowledged. Major life events meet silence or perfunctory, emotionless responses. Congrats with no follow-up. Sorry to hear that, with no comfort offered. This withdrawal is more painful than open conflict because it denies closure. There's nothing to confront, no accusation to defend, no fight to have, just gradual dissolution, like watching someone slowly fade while they insist nothing's wrong. When you reach out, they're busy, going through stuff. We'll call you back later. Later never comes. The silence is maddening because you know the friendship mattered. You have memories of vulnerability shared, struggles overcome together, laughter that felt eternal. How does something that is real just evaporate without explanation? The answer lies in the shadow's nature. Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Envy operates in darkness and silence. Bringing it to light would require acknowledging feelings that shatter the envious person's self-concept. So they withdraw instead, quietly, completely, without ever naming what killed the connection. For men, this silent withdrawal often happens without emotional processing. Male friendships lack the explicit conversations that could address what's happening, so the withdrawal happens in silence, and both parties move on without ever naming what died. You're left with a relationship that exists only in past tense, a person who feels like a ghost haunting your memories. You scroll past their social media, they're still posting, still active, still engaging with others. They didn't become a hermit, they just became a stranger to you specifically. And that specificity confirms the shadow at work. The hardest part of withdrawal is that the other never knows it has already happened. They think I am still there, while I have already buried the connection in my heart. Something about you, your success, your growth, your life became intolerable. So they removed you without explanation. The pain point here is universal. In leaving silently, I was both mourner and gravedigger, and the death I buried was ours. Losing a friend without closure. The human mind craves narrative endings. We need stories to resolve, conflicts to conclude. Silent withdrawal denies us this. We're left creating our own stories, blaming ourselves, wondering what we did wrong, how we could have saved the friendship. But Jung would tell you the truth is simpler and more painful. Some friendships end not because of anything you did wrong, but because your success required the other person to confront their shadow, and they chose withdrawal instead. The friendship didn't die from neglect or distance. It was murdered by envy operating in silence, stabbed in the back by feelings your friend couldn't admit, and there was nothing you could have done to stop it. The shadow always wins when people refuse to face it. Friendships rarely end with storms. More often, they fade in silence, undone by envy, projections, or the refusal to face what lies within. A friend becomes a stranger not because of distance, but because the shadow was never faced, envy unspoken, resentment unclaimed, growth treated as betrayal. Nothing is said, but everything is lost. Yet within this loss lies a hidden summons. Jung reminds us that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadow is not just darkness, but also potential. The parts of ourselves condemned by fear, crushed by comparison, or left to rot in silence. What ends is never only a friendship. It is an invitation to transformation. To stand at the grave of a friendship is to confront a choice. We can collapse into bitterness, forever circling the wound. Or we can recognize that endings are thresholds. What departs leaves space, and what remains is the task. To integrate the shadow, to reclaim our unlived life, to move toward wholeness. Jung's quiet revolution whispers still, the true privilege of a lifetime is to become who you are. Friendships may die, but the self waits to be born.